The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of different species filled the curved seats that rose up like an enormous bowl. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of pure energy. But they all shared one thing in common. They all knew the sacred accord. Ambassador Kretal of the Unified World stood at the center podium. Her blue skin shimmered under the artificial lights as she spoke about trade routes and mining rights. It was a normal day in the council, discussing normal things. That was how it had been for over 2,000 years. In the upper levels of the hall, a group of reptilian beings watched with cold yellow eyes. They wore the dark armor of the hegemony, a military alliance that controlled dozens of star systems. Commander Zethkar was their leader, a tall creature with razor-sharp teeth and claws that could cut through steel. He listened to the boring talk about peace and cooperation with growing anger. "The humans get everything," he whispered to his lieutenant Vexmore. "The best planets, the richest trade routes, the safest space lanes, and why? Because of some old treaty that no one even remembers properly." Vexmore nodded his scarred head. "The Sacred Accord has protected them for 2 millennia, Commander. But maybe it is time someone tested how sacred it really is." The Sacred Accord was simple. It had only one rule: never harm Earth's children, never attack humans, never hurt them, never even threaten them. Any species that broke this law would face the combined might of the entire galaxy. It was the oldest and strongest law in known space. The treaty came from a time most species preferred to forget. When humans first reached the stars, they were different from other species. They explored everywhere, learned everything, and made friends easily. But when someone attacked their colonies, something terrible awakened in them, something that made the galaxy tremble. The War of First Contact lasted only 3 years, but those 3 years changed everything. Humans showed the galaxy what they could become when pushed too far. They fought with a fury that no other species could match. They turned entire star systems into weapons. They made their enemies disappear so completely that even their names were forgotten. The Treaty of Proxima ended that war. The galaxy promised to leave humans alone forever. In return, humans promised to stay peaceful. They kept their word. For 2,000 years, humans had been explorers, scientists, traders, and diplomats. They helped solve problems between other species. They shared their technology freely. They asked for nothing except the right to live in peace. Most species in the galaxy had never seen a human fight. Young beings grew up thinking humans were just another peaceful race hiding behind an old treaty. They forgot why the treaty existed in the first place. Commander Zethkar was one of those young beings. He looked down at Ambassador Kretal and sneered. She was talking about a new human research station in the Kepler Reach, an area of space that the hegemony wanted for themselves. The humans had found something interesting there, some kind of rare crystal that could power their ships better than anything else. They take what they want and hide behind their precious law. Zethkar growled. 800 humans on that station, including families and children. They think they are safe because of words written on paper thousands of years ago. Down on the main floor, a human delegate stood up to speak. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen, and she was a scientist who studied alien life forms. She had short black hair and kind eyes behind metal glasses. She wore the simple blue uniform that all human diplomats used. "The research station at Kepler Reach is making wonderful discoveries," Dr. Chen said in her soft voice. "We have found new types of crystals that could help all species travel between stars more safely. We invite any species that wants to visit our station and learn with us. Science belongs to everyone." Many delegates nodded and made sounds of approval. Humans always shared their discoveries. It was one of the reasons the galaxy protected them so strongly. But Commander Zethkar felt only anger. "Listen to her," he whispered. "So confident, so sure that nothing will happen to them. They have forgotten that the universe is dangerous." Elder Mortis, the oldest member of the Hegemony Council, placed a warning hand on Zethkar's arm. Mortis was ancient, old enough to remember stories from the War of First Contact. His grandfather had fought in that war and told him terrible tales. "Commander, you speak of things you do not understand," Mortis said quietly. "The Sacred Accord exists for good reasons. The humans seem peaceful now, but that is because no one has given them a reason to be otherwise. Do not wake sleeping giants." Zethkar pulled his arm away. "You believe old stories, Elder. I believe in strength. I believe in taking what we need instead of begging for scraps." The session ended, and delegates began filing out of the Great Hall. Dr. Chen gathered her papers and smiled at several alien friends as she walked toward the exit. She was thinking about her daughter Maya, who was waiting for her back on the research station. Maya was only 12 years old, but she loved space and wanted to be a scientist like her mother. Commander Zethkar watched Dr. Chen leave. His mind was already forming plans. The hegemony had the strongest military in their sector of space. They had ships that could destroy planets and weapons that could burn through any defense. Why should they be afraid of humans who had not fought a real war in 2,000 years? "Vexmore," he said as they left the council hall. "Prepare our fleet. It is time to see if the galaxy still remembers how to fight for the humans, or if they have grown as soft as the humans themselves." "Commander, are you certain about this?" Vexmore asked. "The sacred accord has never been broken. We do not know what will happen." Zethkar's yellow eyes glowed with ambition. "That is exactly why we must be the first. The galaxy needs to see that the old ways are finished. That strength matters more than ancient words." As their ship left the council station, neither of them noticed the small probe that followed them. The Watchers, mysterious beings who observed everything but never interfered, had been listening. For the first time in 2,000 years, they began sending urgent messages across the galaxy. Deep in space, the human research station continued its peaceful work. Dr. Chen's daughter Maya played with other children in the station's garden, a beautiful space filled with plants from dozens of different worlds. The children laughed and ran between the flowers, safe and happy. They had no idea that someone was coming for them. They had no idea that the galaxy's oldest and most sacred law was about to be broken. They had no idea that their innocence was about to wake something that had been sleeping for 2,000 years. The sacred accord had kept the peace for so long that everyone forgot why peace was necessary. They were about to remember. The Kepler research station floated peacefully in the deep black of space. It looked like a giant flower made of metal and glass with 5 arms reaching out from a central hub. Each arm held laboratories, living spaces, and gardens where families could relax and children could play. Soft lights glowed from thousands of windows, making the station look warm and welcoming against the cold stars. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the main laboratory, looking at the strange blue crystals they had discovered on the nearby planet. The crystals hummed with energy and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Her research team had been studying them for months, and every day they learned something new and exciting. "Dr. Chen, these crystals could change everything," said Dr. James Park, her research partner. "They store energy better than anything we have ever seen. Ships powered by these crystals could travel twice as fast and twice as far." Sarah smiled as she held one of the small crystals up to the light. "And we will share this discovery with everyone. Imagine what the galaxy could do with unlimited clean energy." In another part of the station, Sarah's daughter Maya was in the school section with 30 other children. Their teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, was showing them pictures of different alien worlds. Maya raised her hand excitedly. "Mr. Rodriguez, when I grow up, I want to visit all those planets and make friends with everyone," Maya said. Her dark eyes sparkled with curiosity and wonder. "That is a beautiful dream, Maya," Mr. Rodriguez replied. "Humans have always been good at making friends across the stars." The children did not know that enemy ships were already moving toward their peaceful home. Commander Zethkar's fleet had been traveling for 3 days, hidden by special technology that made them invisible to sensors. 20 massive warships, each one bigger than the research station, crept closer like hunters stalking prey. On the bridge of his flagship, Zethkar studied images of the human station. Intelligence reports told him there were 847 humans aboard, including 156 children. The number meant nothing to him. To Zethkar, they were just obstacles standing between the hegemony and the crystals they wanted. "Commander, we are in position," reported Captain Scarix from the weapons station. "Our guns are locked onto their main reactor. One shot will destroy the entire station." Zethkar nodded slowly. "Good, make it look like an accident. An explosion in their mining equipment. The galaxy must believe it was not our fault." Elder Mortis, who had been forced to come on this mission, stepped forward with worry in his ancient eyes. "Commander, I beg you to reconsider. Once we do this, we cannot take it back. The sacred accord is words on old paper," Zethkar snarled. "Today we prove that strength is the only law that matters." Back on the research station, Dr. Chen was sending her daily report to Earth. She talked about their discoveries and how excited the team was about their work. At the end of her message, she smiled and waved. "Maya and I are having a wonderful time here. She loves learning about space, and I think she will be an even better scientist than her mother someday. The universe feels so full of possibilities when you see it through a child's eyes. She ended the recording and sent it toward Earth, not knowing it would be the last message her homeworld would ever receive from Kepler Station. In the children's section, Maya and her friends were getting ready for bed. The station followed Earth time, so even though they were surrounded by the endless night of space, they had normal days and nights. Maya looked out her bedroom window at the stars and made a wish, like she did every night. "I wish for peace and friendship across all the stars," she whispered. At that exact moment, Commander Zethkar gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. Fire! The hegemony warship's main gun sent a beam of pure energy racing toward the research station. The beam was invisible and silent, but it carried enough power to crack a moon in half. It struck the station's reactor core with perfect accuracy. For one brief second, nothing seemed to happen. Then the reactor core began to fail. Dr. Chen was in her laboratory when the first alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere, and the station's computer voice began speaking in urgent tones. "Warning. Reactor core failure detected. All personnel evacuate immediately. Warning. Reactor core failure detected." Sarah ran toward the children's section, her heart pounding with fear. She had to reach Maya. She had to save her daughter. But the corridors were already filled with smoke and emergency lights, and the station was shaking apart around her. She made it to the communication center and managed to send one last message before the power died completely. Her hands shook as she spoke into the recorder. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen on Kepler Research Station. We are under attack." This was not an accident. They came for the children. Tell Earth. Tell them they came for the children. The message burst out into space just as the station's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the darkness like a new star being born. Metal and glass scattered in all directions. The beautiful station that had been home to 847 people disappeared in seconds. Commander Zethkar watched the destruction with satisfaction. "It is done. Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them there was a terrible mining accident on the human station. Say that we tried to help, but we arrived too late." But Elder Mortis was not looking at the destroyed station. He was looking at his scanner readings, and his face had turned pale with horror. "Commander," he whispered, "the humans got a message out before they died. The galaxy will know this was not an accident." Zethkar turned to stare at the old soldier. "What message?" "They said we came for the children, Commander. They told Earth that someone came for their children." For the first time since planning this attack, Zethkar felt a cold touch of fear in his heart, but he pushed it away and stood straighter. "Let them know. Let the whole galaxy know. The age of human protection is over. The age of hegemony strength has begun." The pieces of Kepler Station continued to drift apart in the darkness. Among the wreckage, a child's toy floated silently through space, a small Earth bear that Maya had brought from home. Its button eyes seemed to stare accusingly at the hegemony ships as they turned and flew away. The message Dr. Chen had died to send was already racing toward Earth at faster than light speed. It would arrive in 6 hours, and when it did, the galaxy would learn why the Sacred Accord existed. They would learn why no one had dared to touch Earth's children for 2,000 years. The breaking point had been reached. The sleeping giant was about to wake up, and nothing would ever be the same again. The message reached Earth at exactly 1427 Universal Standard Time. Dr. Sarah Chen's final transmission arrived at the Global Communication Center in Geneva, where a young technician named David Kim was monitoring deep space frequencies. When he heard Dr. Chen's desperate words, his coffee cup slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor. "They came for the children." David's fingers shook as he immediately forwarded the message to every government leader on Earth. Within minutes, emergency meetings were starting in every major city. Presidents, prime ministers, and council leaders gathered around screens to hear the same terrible words over and over again. They came for the children. In the underground command center beneath the Swiss Alps, Admiral Elena Vasquez received the call that changed everything. She was the great-great-granddaughter of Admiral Carlos Vasquez, who had signed the Treaty of Proxima 2,000 years ago. The Vasquez family had always served in the Earth Defense Force, but for 50 generations, their job had been peaceful. They protected supply ships, rescued lost explorers, and helped with space emergencies. Today, that changed. Elena stood before the massive screen that showed the scattered remains of Kepler Station. Intelligence reports confirmed that 20 hegemony warships had been detected near the station, just hours before its destruction. There was no doubt about what had happened. The sacred accord had been broken. Earth's children had been murdered. "Admiral," said Captain Torres, Elena's second in command, "what are your orders?" Elena looked at the screen for a long moment. Her dark eyes were calm, but everyone in the room could feel the cold anger growing behind them. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. "Activate Protocol 7, Total War Preparation. Send the call to every human world, every human ship, every human citizen in the galaxy. Tell them to come home. All of them." Captain Torres hesitated. "Admiral, Protocol 7 has never been used. We do not even know if our old allies will answer the call." Elena turned to face him, and he stepped back from the ice in her eyes. "They will answer. They remember what we saved them from. They remember what we are capable of when our children are threatened." The activation of Protocol 7 sent signals racing across the galaxy at impossible speeds. The signals used technology that most species had forgotten existed, quantum transmitters that could reach anywhere in the known universe instantly. For 2,000 years, these transmitters had been silent. Now they screamed with one simple message: "The children are dead. Come home." On the crystal world of Nexus Prime, the architects received the signal first. These beings looked like living diamonds, tall and beautiful creatures made of pure crystal. They had been allies of humanity since the Void Wars, when human ships had saved their homeworld from a collapsing star. Their leader, the Grand Facet, had been alive for those ancient times. "The dead of crystal is called in," the Grand Facet announced to his people. "Humanity saved our children from the void. Now someone has killed theirs. We go to war." 1,000 crystal ships, each one grown rather than built, began moving toward human space. Their weapons could turn matter into energy with a single touch. They had not been used in anger for 2 millennia. In the gas clouds of the Whisper Nebula, the collective also heard the call. These beings had no solid form, existing as pure thought and energy floating in the cosmic wind. Humans had once helped them fight off mechanical invaders who wanted to steal their home nebula. The debt had never been forgotten. "The warm thoughts cry out in pain," whispered the voice of many. "The small warm thoughts have been silenced forever. This cannot stand." Clouds of living energy began gathering, forming shapes that could travel between stars. The Whisper Collective was coming, and they brought powers that could reach into minds across the galaxy. Even the mysterious Watchers, who never interfered with galactic events, began moving their massive ships. These ancient beings had observed every major event in galactic history, but they had never taken sides. Until now, they remembered why the Sacred Accord existed. They remembered what humanity became when pushed too far. On Earth, the preparation for war began immediately. Military bases that had been used for peaceful purposes suddenly became weapons factories. Ships that had been designed for exploration were quickly modified for combat. Scientists who had spent their lives studying distant stars now worked on improving weapons and shields. But the most important, changes were happening to the humans themselves. "Admiral," Elena Vasquez stood in front of a mirror in her quarters, looking at her reflection. She looked the same as she had that morning, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and tired eyes. But something fundamental had changed inside her. Something cold and calculating had awakened, something that had been sleeping in human DNA for 2,000 years. Her aide, Lieutenant Park, entered with the latest reports. "Admiral, human fleets are gathering from across the galaxy. The response is incredible. Ships are coming from places we didn't even know humans lived." Elena nodded without surprise. "How many?" "Over 50,000 ships so far, and more arriving every hour." "But Admiral, many of these ships, they're not in our official records. Some of them use technology we don't recognize." Elena smiled, and Lieutenant Park felt a chill run down his spine. "Humanity has been busy during our peaceful centuries, Lieutenant. We may not have fought wars, but we never stopped preparing for the day someone might force us to fight again." The truth was more complex than most humans realized. While the galaxy had seen humans as peaceful explorers and scientists, humanity had been quietly developing weapons and ships that could end civilizations. They had learned from the War of First Contact. They had prepared for the possibility that someday, someone might be foolish enough to test the Sacred Accord. Deep in space, hidden construction facilities that had operated in secret for centuries began launching ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These vessels could phase in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to hit. Their weapons could rewrite the basic laws of physics in small areas, turning enemy ships into clouds of scattered atoms. Admiral Vasquez received reports from across human space, the merchant captain who had given up trading to become a warrior again, the explorer who had abandoned his research to return with ships full of advanced weapons, the diplomat who revealed that her peaceful negotiations had actually been intelligence gathering for exactly this moment. "Admiral," Captain Torres said, reading from a long list, "we have confirmed responses from the Kepler Rescue Fleet, the Luna Defense Corps, the Mars Engineering Division, the Alpha Centauri Deep Space Patrol, and Admiral, the list just keeps growing. It seems like every human in the galaxy is coming home." Elena looked out at the space around Earth. Already the sky was filling with ships, human vessels of every size and type, from tiny fighters to massive carriers that could hold entire armies. But there were also alien ships arriving, their ancient allies keeping promises made in darker times. A crystal ship the size of a moon settled into orbit near the human fleet. Whisper energy beings danced between the hulls of human warships, their thoughts touching the minds of human commanders and sharing tactical information instantly. Even ships that no one recognized, ancient vessels that might have belonged to species thought extinct, appeared in the growing fleet. 60 hours, Elena said quietly. That's how long it took the hegemony to destroy Kepler Station and kill our children. We will give them the same 60 hours to surrender unconditionally and face justice. And if they refuse? Captain Torres asked. Elena's smile was sharp as broken glass. Then they will learn why the Sacred Accord was written. They will learn what humanity becomes when our children are threatened. And they will learn why the galaxy has spent 2,000 years making sure this day never came. Outside, more ships continued to arrive. The largest military force in galactic history was gathering around Earth. Ancient alliances were awakening. Sleeping giants were opening their eyes. The 60-hour countdown had begun. The 60 hours passed in complete silence from the hegemony. Commander Zethkar had received humanity's ultimatum and laughed at it. He broadcast his response across the galaxy for everyone to hear. "The age of human coddling is over," his message said. "The hegemony takes what it needs. We are not afraid of ancient treaties or empty threats. Let the humans come. We will show the galaxy what real strength looks like." Admiral Elena Vasquez received this message while standing on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's newest and most powerful ship. Around her, the largest fleet in galactic history waited for her orders. The space around Earth was so crowded with ships that the stars were hidden behind hulls of metal, crystal, and energy. "He wants to show the galaxy what strength looks like," Elena said quietly to her officers. "Very well. Let us educate him." The human fleet that moved toward hegemony space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. At its center flew the great battleships, massive vessels that could crack planets and reshape local space. Around them moved the carriers, each one holding thousands of fighters and bombers. Scout ships darted ahead like silver fish, gathering intelligence and preparing the way. But these were not the most frightening part of the fleet. The most frightening part was what the ships could do. The lead ships began to phase in and out of normal space, using technology that made them appear and disappear like ghosts. Weapons that could turn matter into energy, charged up with sounds like thunder. Reality itself seemed to bend around the human vessels as their engines warped space and time. Captain Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the light cruiser New Tokyo. She was Dr. Sarah Chen's sister, and she had volunteered to lead the first attack wave. Like every human in the fleet, she carried something personal to remember the dead. In her case, it was a picture of her niece Maya, drawn in crayon and showing the little girl standing among alien friends under foreign stars. "All ships. This is Captain Kim," she broadcast to her attack wing. "We go in fast and hard. Remember what we fight for. Remember who we have lost. Remember that today, the galaxy learns why no one touches Earth's children." The first hegemony patrol fleet met them at the edge of their territory. 20 heavy warships, the pride of the reptilian military, formed up to block the human advance. Admiral Skarrix commanded from his flagship, confident that superior numbers and firepower would send the humans running. "All ships open fire," Admiral Skarrix ordered. "Show these mammals the price of challenging the hegemony." Energy beams and missile swarms reached out toward the human ships. It should have been the end of the attack. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships simply weren't there anymore. They had phased out of normal space just as the weapons reached them. The deadly fire passed through empty vacuum, while the human vessels reappeared behind the hegemony fleet. Before the reptilian crews could react, return fire erupted from the human ships. But this was not normal weapons fire. The human guns shot beams of twisted space that unraveled the basic structure of matter. Where the beams touched hegemony ships, metal and plastic and living tissue simply stopped existing. Entire sections of warships vanished as if they had never been built. In seconds, 20 hegemony ships became expanding clouds of debris. Impossible, Admiral Scarix whispered as his own ship began to come apart around him. Humans are peaceful. They don't know how to fight. Those were his last words. Captain Kim watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. All human ships jumped to the next target. We have 47 more hegemony fleets to destroy before lunch. Across the galaxy, the news spread with shocking speed. The humans had returned to war, and they fought like nothing anyone had ever seen. Their technology was beyond anything in current galactic understanding. Their tactics were perfect. Their fury was unstoppable. The crystal ships of the architects moved alongside the human fleet, their weapons turning hegemony bases into sparkling dust. The Whisper Collective flowed through enemy computer systems, driving hegemony soldiers insane with visions of the children they had killed. Ancient vessels that belonged to species thought extinct emerged from hiding to fight beside humanity. On the hegemony homeworld, panic filled the streets. Commander Zethkar stood in his command center, watching reports of defeat after defeat flood in from across their territory. In 6 hours, the humans had destroyed half of the hegemony military. In 12 hours, they had reached the inner systems. How is this possible? Zethkar screamed at his intelligence officers. They are scientists and explorers. They make friends and grow flowers. Elder Mordus, who had been captured and imprisoned after opposing the attack on Kepler Station, was brought before Zethkar in chains. The old soldier looked at his commander with sad, knowing eyes. I tried to warn you, Mordus said quietly. The humans seem peaceful because no one has given them a reason to be otherwise. But when their children are threatened, they become something else entirely. What are you talking about? Zethkar demanded. During the War of First Contact, my grandfather served on a hegemony ship, Mordus explained. He told me stories that gave him nightmares for the rest of his life. He said that humans in war do not just fight to win. They fight to make sure their enemy can never threaten their children again. Ever. Outside the command center, explosions began lighting up the sky. The human fleet had reached the homeworld. Ships that moved like living things descended through the atmosphere, their weapons carving precise lines of destruction through military targets while carefully avoiding civilian areas. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Retribution as it entered orbit around the hegemony capital. Below her, the great cities of the reptilian species stretched across the continents. Billions of innocent beings lived there, including hegemony children who had nothing to do with the attack on Kepler Station. Admiral, Captain Torres said, we have total control of their orbital defenses. The planet is helpless. What are your orders? Elena looked down at the world that had produced the monsters who killed her people's children. For a moment, she felt the terrible urge to simply end it all, to turn the entire planet into ash and make sure no hegemony ship ever flew again. But then she remembered what humanity really fought for. They fought to protect children, not to kill them. Target their military command centers only, she ordered. Precision strikes. No civilian casualties. When we are done here, their ability to wage war will be completely destroyed, but their people will live. Admiral, with respect, they killed our children. Why show them mercy? Elena turned to face her captain, and her eyes held depths of sadness and wisdom that seemed far older than her years. Because, Captain, that is what makes us human. We do not become monsters to fight monsters. We become something better, something that protects all children, even the children of our enemies. The bombardment that followed was precise and devastating. Every hegemony military base, every weapons factory, every ship construction facility was reduced to rubble within hours. But hospitals, schools, and civilian homes were untouched. The message was clear. Humanity's war was with those who threatened children, not with children themselves. Commander Zethkar was found in his bunker, cowering behind his desk. When human soldiers came for him, he expected to be killed immediately. Instead, they simply arrested him and brought him before Admiral Vasquez. You will spend the rest of your life making sure this never happens again, Elena told him. You will travel to every world in the galaxy and tell them what you learned when you touched Earth's children. You will explain why the Sacred Accord exists. And if I refuse? Zethkar asked. Elena's smile was colder than deep space. Then you will face justice from the families of Kepler Station. I suggest you choose education over execution. The war was over in 3 days. The hegemony surrendered unconditionally, their military power completely destroyed. Across the galaxy, other species watched in awe and terror as humanity demonstrated what they became when their children were threatened. The humans had not conquered the hegemony. They had simply made it impossible for the hegemony to ever threaten anyone again. It was a lesson that would echo across the stars for thousands of years to come. 6 months after the Children's Crusade ended, the galaxy was a different place. The great human fleet had not returned to their peaceful exploration and trade. Instead, they had taken positions throughout galactic space, watching and waiting. Ancient monitoring stations came online for the first time in millennia. Ships that could appear anywhere instantly patrolled the star lanes. The message was clear. The Sacred Accord was not just a treaty anymore. It was a promise backed by overwhelming force. On the former hegemony homeworld of Krax Prime, the rebuilding had begun. But it was a different kind of rebuilding than anyone expected. Instead of military bases and weapons factories, the humans helped construct schools, hospitals, and research centers. They brought food and medicine to populations that their own government had neglected while building warships. Commander Zethkar, now stripped of rank and title, worked in one of these new schools. He taught young hegemony children about different species in the galaxy, about cooperation instead of conquest, about protecting the innocent instead of attacking them. It was his punishment, but as days turned to weeks, he began to understand it was also his redemption. A small hegemony child named Vixtar raised her hand during one of his lessons. Teacher Zethkar, why did the humans help us after we hurt them? My mother says we destroyed their children. Zethkar looked down at the young reptilian girl, her yellow eyes bright with curiosity. 6 months ago, he would have told her that strength was the only thing that mattered. Now he had learned a harder truth. Because, little one, that is what makes them special. They do not fight to destroy. They fight to protect. Even when someone hurts them badly, they still want to make sure all children are safe. Elder Mortis, now free and serving as an advisor to the reconstruction efforts, nodded approvingly from the back of the classroom. The old soldier had become a bridge between the humans and his own people, helping them understand what they had awakened and why they must never wake it again. On Earth, Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the memorial garden that had been built where Kepler Station once orbited. 847 trees grew here, one for each person who had died. In the center stood a special tree for Maya Chen, whose dreams of visiting distant worlds and making friends among the stars had been cut short by violence. Elena placed flowers at the base of Maya's tree, just as she did every week. The flowers came from worlds across the galaxy, sent by species who wanted to honor the human children who had died. Some species Elena had never even heard of sent remembrances, touched by the story of innocents killed for the crime of existing. Admiral, Captain Torres approached carefully. Elena had become quieter since the war ended, spending long hours in this peaceful place. The Galactic Council is ready for your address. Elena nodded and followed him to the shuttle that would take her to the council station. Today was the formal renewal of the Sacred Accord, but everyone knew it was really about something much more important. Today was about making sure this never happened again. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was packed with representatives from every known species, but the atmosphere was completely different from 6 months ago, where once there had been casual chatter and friendly debate. Now there was nervous silence. Every delegate understood that they were witnessing a moment that would reshape galactic civilization. Admiral Vasquez took the center podium, the same place where Dr. Sarah Chen had spoken about sharing discoveries and building friendships. Elena wore her military uniform rather than diplomatic robes, and her presence commanded absolute attention. 6 months ago, someone broke the Sacred Accord, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the enormous hall. They killed our children because they wanted what we had discovered. They thought strength meant taking whatever you desired, regardless of who got hurt. She paused and looked around the hall, her gaze touching every section, every species. They learned differently. The galaxy learned differently. Today we renew the sacred accord, but with new understanding. It was never created to protect humanity. It was created to protect everyone else from what we become when our children are threatened. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Many of them had seen recordings of the human fleet in action, had watched impossible weapons tear apart entire fleets in seconds. They had seen what humanity was capable of when pushed beyond endurance. But, Elena continued, we do not want to be that thing. We prefer to be explorers, scientists, teachers, and friends. We want to share what we discover and learn from what you discover. We want our children to grow up in a galaxy full of wonder and friendship. She touched a control, and holographic images appeared above the assembly. They showed human ships helping with disaster relief on a dozen worlds. Human doctors working alongside alien medics to fight diseases. Human teachers sharing knowledge with students of every species. Human children playing with alien children in parks on distant worlds. This is what we choose to be, Elena said. But the choice is not ours alone. It belongs to all of you as well. If you choose cooperation over conquest, exploration over exploitation, protection over predation, then we can build a galaxy where every child is safe. She paused again and her voice became harder, carrying an edge that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. But if someone chooses differently, if someone decides that their desires matter more than innocent lives, if someone decides to touch Earth's children, or any children under our protection, then you will meet the other thing we can become, and you will not survive the encounter. The hall was absolutely silent. Elena's words echoed in the vast space, carrying a promise and a threat that every being present understood perfectly. Ambassador Kretal of the Unified Worlds stood up slowly. Her blue skin had paled and her voice shook slightly as she spoke. Admiral Vasquez, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we formally renew the sacred accord. Never again will Earth's children be threatened. Never again will innocence pay the price for the ambitions of others. One by one, every delegate in the hall stood and repeated the oath. Species that had been enemies for centuries looked at each other and nodded in agreement. Species that had never spoken before introduced themselves and began making plans for cooperation. Fear had united them, but something else was growing from that fear. Hope for a better future, understanding that protection was stronger than aggression, recognition that some things were more important than territorial disputes or resource conflicts. After the ceremony, Elena walked through the corridors of the council station. Everywhere she went, delegates stopped to speak with her. They thanked her for showing mercy to the hegemony civilians. They asked for human help with their own problems. They invited human children to visit their worlds and human scientists to share their research. In a quiet observation lounge, Elena found an unexpected visitor. A young human girl about 12 years old stood looking out at the stars through the massive windows. She had dark hair and kind eyes behind metal glasses, and she wore the simple blue uniform of a diplomatic aide. "Hello," Elena said gently. "I'm Admiral Vasquez. What's your name?" The girl turned and smiled. "I'm Maya Chen, Admiral. My mother was Dr. Sarah Chen." Elena's breath caught in her throat. "But you were on Kepler Station. The report said there were no survivors." Maya's smile was sad but determined. "I was visiting my aunt on Luna when it happened. I'm the only Chen left now, but I decided to become a diplomat like my mother wanted to be. I want to make sure what happened to Kepler Station never happens to anyone else." Elena knelt down so she was at eye level with the girl. "Your mother saved the galaxy, Maya. Her message warned us what had happened. Without her courage, we might never have known the truth." "I know," Maya said, "and now I want to continue her work. I want to help build the galaxy she dreamed of, where every child is safe and every species works together." Elena stood and looked out at the stars with Maya. Below them, ships from 100 different worlds worked together, sharing the space lanes in peace. Human vessels moved among them, no longer hidden guardians but visible protectors ensuring that the hard-won peace would last. "Your mother would be proud of you," Elena said, "and she would be proud of what her sacrifice helped create." Maya nodded and placed her small hand against the window. "The stars are so beautiful when you don't have to be afraid of them." Years later, Maya Chen would become humanity's youngest ambassador to the Galactic Council. Her first major speech would be remembered across the galaxy for generations. She would stand in the same spot where her mother had spoken of sharing discoveries, and where Admiral Vasquez had renewed the sacred accord. Her words would be simple but powerful. We are explorers, scientists, diplomats, and friends. But harm our children, harm any children, and we become something else entirely, something you never want to see again. The stars remember, the children are safe, and the galaxy sleeps peacefully, knowing that some laws are written not in treaties but in the fundamental forces of the universe itself. The sacred accord was never broken again. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and in the garden where Kepler's station once orbited, 847 trees grew strong and tall, their roots deep in the soil of memory. Thank you for watching and comment for next.